Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joel Jacob.
What's up, Heat Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Heat versus the World podcast. Like always, I'm your host, Joel Jacob, and you can follow me on Twitter at JoelKJacob_. As usual, I got some guests with me today. First, we got Brian. Say what's up to the people, Brian.
What's up? I want chicken McNuggets. I'm very hungry.
And then after that, we got Kaylee.
Hello.
And then right after that, George.
I also want chicken McNuggets. I'm also on that train.
All right,
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh.
All right, so we don't got chicken nuggets just yet, but we can feast on these topics instead. So without further delay, let's get into today's episode. Last game, the Heat pulled off another upset after beating the 76ers on the road by 5. This improved their record to 17-12 while holding on to the 5 seed. Leading the way, you got Gabe Vincent, who had 26 points, 7 3-pointers, and 3 assists. Duncan Robinson with 21 points, 4 3-pointers of his own, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Kyle Lowry with 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. PJ Tucker with 12 points and 4 rebounds. And last but not least, Dwayne Dedmon with 10 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Considering the fact that Miami is still without Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, while also not having Tyler Hero as well for this game, how impressed are you guys with this Miami Heat victory? Start us off, George.
I'd be more impressed if we had chicken nuggets here, but if we don't, then this is what we got to go off. What a win. What a way to start. COVID has decimated our league and injuries as well. And to come out and versus a team who still had Harris, Tybal, Embiid, Seth Curry, Maxey, basically the entire starting lineup without the big baby Ben Simmons, big baby Ben. I was so impressed watching us just play. Duncan Robinson, fantastic, well done. He didn't shoot the ball fantastic, but he was getting double teamed all night. Was showing a lot of heart, a lot of determination to get open looks when he could. Paired that with 8 rebounds as well, which was fantastic. Dwayne Dedmon, oh my God. Thank God for Dwayne Dedmon. I said it 5 years ago. 5 years ago when I was watching him play for the Magic, I was sitting here going, we need someone like this to come off the bench for us. And this is back when we had Whiteside. So I've been a fan of him for a long time. To get 14 boards as well, 2 offensive, 5 assists, good passing for a big man as well. Only get 3 fouls as well. Well done. Gabe Vincent, what are you going to say? Just what a star off the bench for us. I called at the start of the season in our first pod of the season. He's going to be our X factor moving in because we needed scoring off the bench and everyone was questioning our depth for years. And especially now coming into the league. When Kyle Lowry didn't have a good game like he did today, he didn't have a good game at all. Played the most minutes out of anyone except for Duncan Robinson. Only had put up 14 points. He has a knack for doing this against the Sixers as well. Some of the threes he was making were unbelievable. But again, all of the props, all of my respect goes to PJ Tucker. Everyone gives as much praise as you want to Vincent, to Duncan, to anyone, but Tucker brings it night in, night out. And I actually bookmarked a tweet from Udonis Haslam said. He goes, what doesn't he do? He might lead us in offensive rebounds. He's taking charges. He switches on pick and rolls. He accepts every matchup. He never complains about plays. He only complains about bad defense. That's the kind of teammate I want. Those were UD's words. And we should take them as gospel because he's been our anchor and just the guy to do it all for us. And I can't give him enough respect.
Right. And then what about you, Kaylee?
Well, for me, as many people know, I'm a fan of both Heat and Sixers. So this game was very interesting for me, especially seeing how the Sixers technically are at full health whenever they were playing on their roster, even though like basically like Curry and Joel shouldn't have played because they are not like 100% physically. It was still interesting to see because I was kind of like, I feel like even if the Sixers have like a full bench playing or like a full team playing, I feel like the Heat still somehow like can like just outwon them, you know. So then I feel like that's basically what happened, and in a way I was happy because I was like, to me it's great to see that the bench can like step up and like do amazing things, and Gabe Vincent can literally just like demolish the Sixers defense as if it's nothing. And then I it was really interesting to see like the dynamic between what's it called, like Matisse and Duncan. Like they kept having like tips and random stuff like that. Like I feel like Matisse really couldn't find an answer for Duncan, which is again great for the Heat. And yeah, and even though like Kyle Lowry didn't have like that amazing of a game, he was still able to really just kind of like confuse the defense of the Sixers. It was honestly the defense of the Sixers was barely even there from what I saw. And then of course I don't think they even had an answer for PJ either, which is also super freaking amazing. It's awesome to see. And yeah, like anytime, I feel like that's the thing too, like a lot of the times I had to like do something during the game, so like I kind of just was hearing the audio for most of the time, but I kept hearing like so many different things of like, and then like we have PJ doing something crazy, and then we have fucking Vincent doing something crazy, and I'm like, wow, like this is like kind of crazy how like they're like showing up. It's not like it's like little like basic plays. It's like very like aggressive and like tough shots, contested shots, and like what's it called, like fouling with purpose and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to just see like how much like at least in my view as being fans of both, like the Sixers can be very semi-cocky with their defense, thinking that they can like hold people down sometimes. But if you just run something slightly different or just kind of have something that they haven't really planned for, then I feel like it's really easy to kind of like break them down pretty fast. And that's, to me, that's basically what happened. And like he just took full advantage, guns blazing, and just demolished them. I think they even kept them to a like 11-point lead for most of the time, which is crazy. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Right. And how about you, Brian?
I feel like that game probably lost a lot of people a lot of money because there's no way the Heat should have won that game. I mean, they basically ran out of G League lineup, you know, save for Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker and, you know, Duncan Robinson, Dwayne Dedman. But I don't even know how that game happened. Like, I don't know how Gabe Vincent turned it into Damian Lillard versus what should be one of the better defenses in the NBA. But it happened, which is insane. And, you know, the Heat have done this before. I don't know what it is, but they played shorthanded versus the Sixers, and they've made the games really, really competitive or won. And I just, like, I don't know. My brain is still wondering, like, did the Sixers show up and just not care about that game? Did they walk in thinking like, we're basically playing a G League team, so we should be able to walk in? I mean, it's great. Like, all credit to the Heat, by the way. Like, I'm not taking anything away from the Heat. Like, you show up, you play, and it's the better team that night, and the Heat were the better team that night. It's like, you know, you saw people on the timeline talking about this was culture personified as a game, and it kind of was. This was like the ultimate culture game. You know, coming into the season, I've kind of, you know, poo-pooed the Heat's depth, and, you know, for it to shine through on a night like this, I think is important. I think it's important for guys like Gabe Vincent to get those reps. I think it's important to have nights where, you know, Duncan Robinson can be effective in other ways outside of shooting, and for guys like Dwayne Dedman to really make an impact against one of the best centers in the league, because it only helps the Heat going forward. It really, really does. You know, when you get Jimmy and Bam and Hero back, you know, they're going to be fantastic, you know, as they've been all season. But these other guys now have the experience to step in and make an impact, you know, and I think it's just a really, really great game for the Heat's other players, for I guess what would be said the other guys, and just for the morale of the team going forward. Shows that when they're on, they could be competitive with anybody. So big props to them for pulling that game out. It was much needed.
Right. And I know, George, you got something you want to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to to what we are talking about before, something that Brian said. Every time we verse the Sixers, we're always missing, excuse me, either Jimmy or Hero or Bam. Now, usually with any other team, we struggle massively. We saw it with teams before when we were shorthanded, being less aggressive, less inclined to put the ball on the ground and dribble. Usually just pulling up for bad threes. But the Sixers won us this game. In all honesty, they got out rebounded by 9. You're letting Duncan and Lowry combine for 14 rebounds, which is just should never happen. You've got they had all the pieces to make it work, but we always find a way to keep it competitive, keep it close, and win most of the time. Especially last year, we would have won last year as well if Joel Embiid didn't carry that ball, which everyone still remember. I saw people posted about it yesterday when he did that obvious carry with 8 seconds left and then they ended up winning the game in overtime. But they took some of the worst shots, ill-advised shots I've ever seen for a team that was basically full health. Besides Maxey, they looked and even Tobias Harris, they looked helpless for 3 out of the 4 quarters. They looked helpless. They were just chucking up anything that they could get and hope to God it splashed, but it never worked for them.
Right. And then I know Kaylee got something else that you want to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with what George said when it came to shot making for the Sixers. It was honestly kind of cringe to see for my part, because I knew that I'm a big advocate for Maxey, just giving Maxey the ball and let him do what he does, because that's something that I feel that I even with just not even the Heat, but I feel like any team can't really find an answer for Maxey. He's just way too quick, and sometimes he just catches you off guard. But everyone else, I was just kind of like, guys, this is embarrassing. Even if I wasn't a huge fan of the Sixers, it's just an embarrassing way to kind of play a game, So it was and I knew that a lot of tweets on Sixers Twitter was just kind of I'm surprised they're not booing them at this point, because it was embarrassing to see. But yeah, terrible shots, really awkward defense, non-reliable playmaking, and I'm pretty sure Doc was just scratching his head of but I thought this was supposed to be a G League type of game. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
And then quick thing that I want to add was, I tweeted this on the Heat versus the World account last night when Miami was up by 20 something. I was waiting for the let's go Heat chance. If we had that going on in the 76ers arena, that would have made my night complete. I mean, for the fans who have been saying, we're still going to be the better team, whether the Heat have Jimmy or not a couple of years ago, to them chanting that in their own arena, that would have just made my night perfect. But, it is what it is, and I'll take the W myself. And I know, Brian, you got something that you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that, again, I want to give full credit to the Heat. They beat the Sixers, but the Sixers play is confusing. There was one possession where Embiid gets the rebound, he brings the ball up, and he immediately shoots a 3 with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, and it's why? When did you become? I mean, he can knock down open threes, but it's kind of like the Anthony Davis syndrome, where it's dude, you're 7'1", crazy athletic, way stronger than Dwayne Dedman. Why would you do that? I don't. And versus the Heat zone, the best way to break zones is to get in the middle of the zone, and you're one of the best people. Come on, bro. I don't understand why Embiid would be afraid to park his ass in the middle of the zone, catch the ball, and you're going up against Dwayne Dedman. Why? In what world do you think that taking that floating out, from 15 feet to the 3-point range is the most efficient offense that you could generate? I don't know. It's kind of confusing. It confuses me, but whatever. You take the W. I guess off of dumb basketball, but hey.
And then Kaylee, how about you? I know you got something you want to add.
No, yeah, because like I completely agree. Like that's what I was just saying like a short while ago, that I was like, it was just so like it was so awkward. I don't know what it was. I really don't know. I feel like honestly, most likely it was most of like Doc's weird plays that he was trying to somehow accomplish as a solution of trying to like kind of gain points. But I'm like, dude, like it made no sense. Like Toby was doing some really awkward like run-ins and that kept missing or just getting blocked easily because like, yeah, we have literally Deadman right there. Of course, it's gonna get blocked. And then like they would put Joel in these really weird zones, and I'm kind of like, why is he all the way over here? Why is he taking a shot with still like 15 seconds left? It was the most weirdest, cringiest way of playing. I have genuinely no idea what happened, and that's with me like following most of their games and knowing how they play too. So I'm like, if I'm shocked, I can't even imagine like the rest of the people in like the Sixers fandom, how they feel. And I'm telling you, it was weird. That's all I have to say.
Right. And I agree with you guys 100%, you know, but last night it was just such an amazing game. And, you know, you just couldn't help but feel so happy. Like what you said, Brian, earlier, like, this game felt that it personified Heat culture. And to just watch this team do what they did, you know, without Jimmy, without Bam, without Tyler, you know, it was just such a great thing to watch. And, you know, it helps me go into this next topic that I want to talk about. And it's something that I hope we see very soon. And that's something is seeing a fully healthy Miami Heat team. Without our best players, Miami has been able to pick up some challenging wins, including this last win against Philly and last week's win against the Bucks. Considering how good this Heat team has played, even when dealing with all of these injuries, should this be considered as a message to the league regarding how absolutely dangerous this team will be when everyone on the Heat is active? Kick us off, Brian.
I mean, I don't know if this win is, because again, I think that it's not like, I think that if we saw this team play full 82, it would very clearly be a lottery team. But I think that fully healthy, this Heat team is one of the best in the Eastern Conference for sure. Like I mean, prior to them having their injury issues, I mean, they were one of the top teams in the East. So I think that when everyone comes back, yeah, they'll be really, really good. They're going to be a tough out. Now, I still feel that the East goes through Brooklyn, and there was a report recently about there being some optimism about Kyrie coming back. And if that happens, then it's, you know, it's basically curtains for everybody in the East. You know, you still got to give props to, you know, or credit to the Bucks. You know, they're the champions. So until somebody takes that chip away from them, you know, you have to give them the respect of being second favorites to the Nets. So listen, after those two teams, it's anybody's conference. Like the Heat, I think, can beat any team that's not the Nets or the Bucks. And they can honestly push the Nets and the Bucks in the series. I probably wouldn't pick them, but yeah. So I think that everybody knows that this team is basically health away from being one of the most dangerous teams in the conference. It's just a matter of getting there. You know, when will they be healthy? I don't know. But I think that the positive is that while, you know, these injuries are not great, they're happening early in the season, right? So all the while, Jimmy and Bam and Hero are getting rest. Same can't be said about Kyle and PJ, who are older, who you probably do want resting, but your three best players right now are going to be able to make a very, very solid push in that second half of the year. So they'll be good, man. They'll be good. Like I said, it's just a matter of time.
Right. And then how about you, George?
I'm extremely optimistic about this team. I've always been a big advocate of our off-season moves and acquisitions, and I think it's come to play. When we were healthy, we were dominant. I'll never forget the first game we played, and we just went out there and did our thing. And Lowry just showed us that we were struggling without a pure point guard. Things that Goran, even though he was amazing, and I love him to bits, and I always consider him one of the great, one of our best point guards in history. There's certain things that he couldn't bring compared to Kyle. When this team is healthy, I don't care if Brooklyn has Kyrie. We showed last year when Bam single-handedly took them and beat them, hit that game-winning 3 against them. When we didn't have Jimmy in that game, that we can do it. We're proving it against some of the other top teams in the East, because Philadelphia, I don't care if Ben Simmons is not playing, they're still a very good team. And to beat them without Hero, without Jimmy, without Bam, without Martin, Depot, everyone. If this team is healthy, there's no doubt in my mind that we can make it out of the East if we actually put everything together. We've already beat the Bucks twice this year. In one time without anyone, and it was hilarious to watch. I agree with Brian when he says that the East does run through Brooklyn, because when you talk about star talent, that's what they've got. But the rest of their team is extremely short-handed, and they've shown it. They've shown their weakness. It's things that we do better. It's the same thing with the Cavs. The Cavs destroyed us the other day because the things that we do bad, they did amazing. And it's the exact same with the Brooklyn Nets. The things that they do bad, we do even better. We do fantastic in. So I think that when this team is healthy and they get enough rest under their belts, I think when everyone does come back, which will be around just post-Christmas, middle to late January as well, with Oladipo and Bam, that we can start to rest players like PJ and players like Lowry as well. Even to give Duncan some time off, because he did play 39 minutes yesterday. So with whatever happens, I'm still very, very optimistic that this team can make a good run. I think we're still one of the most dangerous teams in the entire NBA. So we'll see what we have to do from there.
Right. And how about you, Kelly? How do you feel?
So I remember in like one of the first podcasts that I guess here, like I talked on here, I literally mentioned how like even though we were like on a high from like the first week of like winning some back-to-back games, going on this whole winning streak, whenever we were all healthy and everything was happy, I was like, I just had that looming fear of like, but whenever we get injured, what's going to happen? Because it's inevitable whenever you have like, everyone plays aggressive. I knew that was going to happen at one point, but like I feel like as long as they kind of like are not all injured at the same time again, like I feel like once they're fully healthy, it's like we're only going to probably have that maybe for like one game, maybe two, but I don't feel like we'll ever have like a fully healthy, like complete roster for consistency, like for very long until maybe the playoffs, unfortunately. But when they do come back, we'll be for sure fine. I remember before too, I used to always say like a fully healthy Heat team is honestly terrifying and scary. Like I feel like that kind of puts fear into the East overall. It's kind of like, okay, well, if they're good, like, and they're all healthy, then we have to like step it up more, because like even if they're not that healthy right now, they're still equally as scary or intimidating. So then with everyone back and the kennel full blown, barking, then I feel like people are going to be like, oh, okay, maybe we should, try a little bit harder and not try to underestimate them. Because I feel like now it's more kind of like an intimidation game. It's more kind of like instead of, trying to be like, oh, like we have all these stats and all these like really cool things, especially whenever like if Duncan has an off night, they're like, oh, well, like you're Duncan, like per they suck, and that's because of the stats. But it's like, no, but we have that intimidation factor that whenever we come in, we're here to play. So it's like, yeah, our stats might have sucked the previous game, but today's a new day and we're gonna be amazing. And if we're all healthy, even worse, So it's like it's more kind of like watch out. So I feel like that's the main thing that I feel is gonna come back once everyone is like the full roster is back. Then I feel like the fear will be reinstilled into the East. Yeah, I feel like even the Nets, like, yeah, I'm sure the Nets have that star quality. Kyrie is like in the little corner, maybe coming back. But even then, I feel like they won't underestimate like the talent that is on the team, that they have to step it up, even if they have all the star power that they can, But yeah, I feel like that's all.
Now, I agree 100% with you guys. And you know what? What's my opinion? I honestly do believe that like when we get this team fully healthy, that it's going to be scary hours for the league. You know, like to have played as good as we've been against these other teams now, it's obviously it's been a messy season so far, and we will talk about that in the next topic. But I just got to say, you know, I've always been a big fan of what this Heat team is going to bring, you know, before the season started. And I just really can't wait when we're fully healthy. Because imagine all these guys, like you got Jimmy, you got Bam, you got Victor, you know, you got PJ, you got everyone, like everyone fully healthy, all hands on deck, you know, Tyler, Duncan Robinson. Like this team is just so amazing. Like I feel like we can't just, you know, go through an episode without talking about how good some of these players really are. Like not only our main guys, but also the guys who come off the bench. Like this episode, we're probably calling it the Gabe Vincent show. And whoever thought we'd do an episode like that? You know, we literally did our last episode, you know, it was a Caleb Martin appreciation episode. And so when you see, you know, how talented some of these guys are, you know, I think you just can't help but be so excited when you think about how talented each and every one of these players are on this team. So, you know, I just really cannot wait to see this team being fully healthy, because it's going to be one of the best things that we're going to see throughout this season. But anyways, I don't want to waste too much time. So now I want to talk about the league in general, as it appears that every team in the NBA has been dealing with some sort of COVID case. We've been seeing all kinds of players, coaches, and others get put into safety protocols, including some of the best players in the league, like Giannis, James Harden, and LeBron. The Heat have also been dealing with the same issues as well, as Caleb Martin this season has not played for the Heat after having his masterpiece of a game against the Bucks last week. Seeing how the league has been impacted by COVID, do you guys believe the league should shut down to prevent more cases, or do you guys have any other solutions in mind? What do you think, Brian?
I mean, if you ask me, I'm shutting down the league for approximately 6 weeks, however long it takes for Bam to get back. But that probably won't happen. Yeah, I mean, I think that what they're probably going to do eventually is there's going to be a little bit of a moratorium, maybe a couple of weeks after Christmas, I would bet, because I think that they probably want that Christmas money in those Christmas games. I'm no doctor though, so I don't know what guidelines would be best, but I think that it might be a good idea for the league and the players to talk about, like, okay, so we know that cases are rising. Let's make sure everyone gets their booster shots. And then after that, let's talk about like outside of work activities. Like maybe for the rest of the season, the players can't, go to clubs or, be in super crowded spaces. I mean, they're already at games, so maybe there's better screening of fans. Like, let's make sure all the fans have booster shots. I think that it's going to be stuff like that, like, kind of working around the periphery and trying to figure out, like, where can we potentially cut out spaces in which someone could potentially catch COVID? Can we prevent the players from getting it on the outside and bringing it in? Can we limit the exposure from the fans? I think that there's still some arenas that don't require everybody to be vaccinated, so let's get that tightened up. It's going to be a lot of that. And even then, it may not work because, at the end of the day, it's an incredibly infectious disease, and there's just not much the NBA or humanity at large can do to stop it, outside of like massive sweeping policies. And the fact is, not to get too political, but the fact is that a lot of this isn't even on the NBA. A lot of it is just how America, perceives of the virus in general. And if people aren't going to get vaccinated and not, do the things that are going to keep them safe, then it's always going to be around. There's always going to be some new mutation or, something that's going to get to the players eventually. So I unfortunately think that this is something that's just beyond what the NBA can handle. There's going to be, Band-Aids on, the cuts that pop up, but I just don't really see a way for this to be handled in a really effective, efficient way, unfortunately.
Right. And then how do you feel, Kaylee?
Yeah, so if it was my choice, if I was Adam Silver, I would actually like kind of shut everything down for a few weeks at least like just for a little while. Like I feel like once you kind of get it more control, so we can at least stop the spread at like that's like the bare minimum to stop the spread because obviously right now it's going kind of rabid like everywhere and that's really concerning because it's like when once you're like having teams that barely have like any players like 10 to 7 players or like yeah so 7 to 10 players that can only play that day and then they want those players that are potentially have the virus to play and it's like against healthy players. That's like guys, that's kind of just dumb at this point. Like we should just stop for a second, let everyone like kind of regain their immune system, give them all a break because the thing is too like we don't think about too much about how they're literally playing like a lot of physical activity also like kind of hinders a lot of like when it comes to healing and like your body like trying to like catch up with itself and with the traveling too like they're probably barely sleeping so it's like none of this whole recipe that we're kind of dealing with right now is not the best for like anyone, like not for the fans, not for the staff, not for the players, not for the organization in general. So it's like if we just pause a little bit for like a little tiny bit, I feel like that'll like make the world of difference. And it would make sense that they would do it after Christmas because like of course they're not gonna want to get like that's a big cash grab that I feel like I'm sure they're not gonna just do it before that. That'd be really stupid. So it's like, I'm pretty sure it's fun. Maybe hopefully in January, but I don't know. Cause I feel like, ticket sales have already been spent. Arenas have already been booked. It's so complicated. So that's why I'm like, I understand why like they don't do it because it's a very like hard thing to make everything work together because there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to this, but people are getting more and more sick and it's just getting worse. So I hope that they do something rather than just kind of just avoiding it and pretend like it's not happening or it's not an issue at least. I want them to at least like acknowledge it's an issue, have some sort of plan of like what to do and possibly give them maybe a little bit of a break, but we'll see.
Right. And you, George?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation because I have to separate both of my personalities where one of them is very orientated towards, my mental health is screaming, don't you dare stop the games because I don't know what I'm going to do without watching basketball. But then realistically, there's going to be a point drawn. We saw today that De'Aaron Fox went down within healthy safety protocols. Embiid was just in there. You got a lot. Russell Westbrook today was in health and safety. You got to stop. You got to stop at some point and say, what are we going to do that's for best for our players and for the future of the league? Because you can't let it get to a point where teams are playing with 6-7 men and we're canceling games. That's the opposite of what the league wants. Obviously, they're going to want to stop before Christmas, stop after Christmas because Christmas is their biggest, besides the All-Star game, the playoffs, their biggest, cash revenue time, which would be a horrible thing to miss out on for the NBA. In all seriousness, because they can't lose any more money after they've done for the last 2 years. So I would stop in January. I think it'd be good for the Heat as well. Like if we can wait 2 to 3 weeks, that takes 2 to 3 weeks off the time that Bam needs to get healthy and Depot comes back on the court. So if we stop and we get healthy, it's also another positive for us. But I would ideally let the league go until Christmas, which is only a few days away. And then in January after the new year, they have to look at tightening something up because it's getting out of hand at the moment. A lot of teams are going without extremely crucial players. So it's, I think you got to stop it.
Right. And, it's honestly such an interesting situation because, we've never been in this type of situation before in all these years in the league. This is the 75th season of the NBA. We've never seen something like this. And, I'm not sure what Adam Silver is going to decide, knowing the fact that he let the Heat and Bulls play. It's like, I don't know what would he decide for this type of situation, like it's really hard to decide. And especially when the playoffs come around, because the last thing you need is for like one of the best players in the league, like hypothetically speaking, like there's a game 7 between two of the best teams in the league, and you hear that one of the best players on one of the teams ends up having to miss that game 7 because like they're in health and safety protocols, and that's like something you don't want to have to deal with. So it's just such an interesting situation, and I really wish I had an idea of my own that I could share with you guys, but it's just I just really don't know what to say regarding what the NBA should do. Should they take time off? Should they do this? Should they do that? We'll see what Adam Silver decides. But from me, I really just don't know what they should do. So, getting into this next topic, though, I want to now focus back on the Heat because it's time to do another segment of the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week. To those who are listening to the pod for the first time, this is when we pick one Heat player who really stood out the most this past week. So with that being said, who's your Spotlight Player of the Week, Kaylee?
Well, mine is Gabe Vincent for sure. That guy has been extremely surprising and a pleasant surprise at that. I feel like I remember a lot of jokes were being made last night and Sixers Twitter about or not even both, just NBA Twitter about how he's basically the new AI, and I was like, that's honestly hilarious, and honestly I'm all for it. I'm like, if that's what he's hoping to be, that's kind of amazing. And I remember too, on the broadcast last night, they were talking about his Olympic run. And that reminded me whenever I'd watched whenever he was on the team on Nigeria, and how he basically beat the US for one game too. That was also kind of cool to remember. So yeah, Gabe is doing amazing. He has such a bright future from if he keeps playing at this caliber and keeps surprising us like this. It's very exciting, and it's also super exciting that he's doing that with the Heat. And but yeah, I just hope to see what else he can surprise us with, because I feel like we haven't tapped everything that he can do yet, which is really fun. So yeah.
Right. And you, George?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a different route. I'm gonna say PJ Tucker, because Gabe Vincent was the player of the game last game, and there's no doubt about that. But I'm gonna have to go PJ, because you can't play a game that revolves around both sides of the floor without a defensive anchor. And with Bam gone and Jimmy gone and Debo still out, we've very much relied on him to do a lot of the heavy lifting, puts his body on the line every single game. He's shooting for the month 52% from 3. So he's been shooting great. He passes well for a player at his position, rebounds extremely well for a player of his height. But he allows Gabe Vincent to do what he needs to do, because it's a game of runs. And when you're getting stops and then you're on the fast break, it allows Gabe Vincent to get in the positions that he wants to be. He gets to put the ball on the ground to go to the rim. He gets really, really good looks. But PJ allows his team to operate at the highest level possible. And he nearly won us the game in Cleveland. I'm not saying that it was close, but I'm saying he was doing all he could. And he looked fantastic. Last game looked just as good. Maybe not scoring wise, but he is the best defender we've got on this team. He does it day in, day out. And I can't give praise to anyone else but him.
Right. And you, Brian?
Wait, okay, yeah. So before I go, I had a thing on the last topic. I'll make it quick. But basically, in the 80s, there were about 4 billion people on Earth. Now there's over 7 billion, right? Which means that there's way more opportunity for viruses to, not only show up, but mutate. So if you're the NBA, I think that you kind of have to look at the fact that there's a growing population. There's going to be probably more opportunities, more times where we have viruses that pop up that are going to affect your players and affect your league. And one of the things that you can do now to maybe help, what's going on now and the future pandemics that you'll face is invest in research, invest in finding out how, we can best combat diseases, because it's gonna come up. It's gonna come up again. And, you need really, really smart people trying to, figure out ways to combat these diseases. But outside of that, my player of the my spotlight player is going to be Duncan Robinson. I think I picked him last time. I don't know, but man, he's bounced back. He's bounced back as of late. And I think we've all talked about how, like, I don't think anybody who had rightfully criticized Duncan thought that he was just some guy who couldn't play anymore. Like, I think a lot of it was in his head. I don't know if those issues are fixed, but his shooting has really, really come around. And I think that he's having moments where even if it's not, he's still doing other things on the court to be a solid basketball player. And if that stays, if he's something close to the Duncan that we saw the previous 2 years, with Jimmy and Bam and Hero and Oladipo coming back, that really, really changes things. They were really good with Duncan struggling. So imagine what they're going to look like if Duncan is, hitting, at the high 30s or in the low 40s from three, and really, really giving them that space and that gravity that he had the previous 2 years. So I'm really, really hoping he can keep that ball rolling. Hoping that, he's kind of out of his slump, because this team needs him. This team needs him. They want to hit that second level.
Right. And, I know, George, you have something you want to add, but before you do that, I just want to quickly give my player of the week. So for me personally, since everyone has good answers, I'm going to pick a different answer of my own. I'm going to say Dwayne Dedmon, especially because he bowled out in his last game against Philly. An interesting statistic that Heat versus Haters tweeted out was Joel Embiid was 3 of 10 from the field when defended by Dwayne Dedmon. Dwayne Dedmon, on the other hand, was 4 of 6 from the field when defended by Joel Embiid. So, I know it's not much, but I feel like this just shows you how much of an impact Dwayne Dedmon has. And he's also a dog himself. He's also a part of that kennel. And you just love the energy he brings to this team. And I know, George, you said it earlier that, you always felt that he'd be a good addition to this team dating back to when he was on the Magic. And for him to be here, I didn't think he'd have this much of an impact on the Heat. But to see how he's, been such a huge part of what this team is trying to build, that tough mentality, that Heat culture and everything, he's just been amazing, especially in this game against Philly and throughout this week. So I'm going to give the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week award to Dwayne Dedmon and to everyone who's listening to this pod on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. We would love to hear your Spotlight Heat Player of the Week as well. So just go in the comments and let us know, who do you think deserves to be the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week. So now, George, I know you got something you want to add.
Yeah, I was reading something as we're starting up before, and Ira was saying Duncan signed a contract with the massive raise. His trade restriction is lifted on January 15th. Now I want to pose a question to all of you. Would you trade Duncan Robinson if the right player arose?
I mean, I'll go up first for this one. I mean, yeah, if like I said, if the right player came up, I think you would. I mean, there's no question that needs to be asked about it, because at the end of the day, the question is obviously who would be that player. If Pat Riley can find a good deal for a certain guy, and if that deal involves Duncan Robinson, he'll do it. I don't think he has that type of attachment where he's not going to let a player go just because of this or that. Just one thing Heat fans need to know is Pat Riley's going to make a good deal for if he has to trade Duncan Robinson. He's not going to trade him for some random scrub or anything like that. So, if I'm just saying, because I do see the most random trade machine scenarios from Heat Twitter now and there that don't really make any sense. So I'm just making it clear, and I'll say it one more time. Pat Riley is going to make a trade, and if he does make a trade for Duncan Robinson or whoever down the line, it's going to be an actual good trade. It's not just going to be, D-Rob to another team for a bag of chips. So whether if you've been impressed with his performance or if you're still upset that there are games where he doesn't play that good, it's important that you know this. So that's what I gotta say about it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I would trade Duncan Robinson. I mean, I like him. I like him as a player. He seems like a cool dude. I mean, I don't know him personally. Could be a jerk, but yeah, like if the right player comes along, the right deal, of course, he's not an untouchable guy. I mean, he has a really valuable skill set, that's for sure. But at the same time, like you can find shooters. Like he's a really, really good shooter, but you can find shooters, and some of them will play defense. So he has a pretty thick contract. Would fit in nicely if there was a really big deal to be made, or if it was more of a, we're not getting like a star, but we're getting some good pieces. I'm cool with that too. And I don't actually expect Duncan Robinson to stay with the Heat throughout the 10-year of his contract. And I would imagine that Pat Riley or Eric Spoelstra or whoever else would probably not feel super attached to Duncan if his name had to come up in a deal that made the team better.
And how about you, Clippy?
Clippy.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Coach Shah got me mixed up. How about you,
Damn.
Kaylee? how about you, Kaylee?
Okay. So my opinion with that is I feel like if a trade did come along, I would not be too like I would want to trade him. Yeah, I feel like I would just want to trade him just because of that contract. That contract literally is like it's a pain to always see, it's like, damn, like that's a lot of money, so it's like if we can really just get like another player that I don't know has just like a better fit or like maybe more reliable on shooting or something like that for even like less, perhaps, maybe. I was like, that honestly be kind of great, and I'm not against that at all. And I agree with what everyone else said about how like the attachment figure thing, I don't think it's going to really be like a factor at all, because like again, it's more about like what can make the team better. It's not really about like personally like Duncan, yeah, you suck, like no, it's not about that. It's about like this will genuinely make the Heat better. So sorry, go pack your bags, goodbye. So that's my opinion.
Jeez, you going right at the point. You didn't got to say all that, packing the bags. But yeah, I do agree with you guys about, the whole, what's it called? Making the trade for the right player. That's what we got to do. And I know Pat Riley's not afraid to do that. And I know, George, you want to give your point of view of the whole situation?
Yeah, I'll do it quick. I was looking at a trade before. I was as you know, we got a massive time difference, and I woke up way too early. I saw 7:00 and then woke up at 6, and then realized it's not till 11 my time. So I had a lot of time to do what I wanted to do. So I was sitting on the trade finder and I was looking at a trade for Malcolm Brogdon from Indiana. There's been reports and guarantees that they're looking to sell, and not just in the off season, in the trade deadline. Malcolm Brogdon on this team would just make a whole bunch of sense. A guy that was, he was drafted lower than he should have. He played amazing in his rookie season. Got dropped by Milwaukee. They won a championship. And he's been balling out in Indiana. Now, if Indiana wants to make a deal for him, I think Duncan Robinson would be the center piece, because he's still of a good age, 27, I think, or 28. He's not on a horrible contract. And if you want to get off that contract from Malcolm Brogdon, you're going to have to absorb something. I think that we've got one first round pick as well. I think if we can attach a first, a second, Duncan, and another player, I don't know which player that would be, but someone of a lesser quality, then I would pull the pin instantly. But that's Pat Riley's decision. That's why he's at the helm. That's why he does what he does. So yeah, we'll just see. We'll have to see what happens with him.
Right, and like I said, like Pat Riley will do what's best for the team. So, we just got to trust the Godfather for that. And, now I just want to sort of speed things up. And that's by going into this final topic. So just in case you guys didn't know already, the Heat's upcoming game will be against none other than the second worst team in the league, and that is the Orlando Magic. Miami will most likely be shorthanded for this game as well, as Bam is still recovering from his thumb surgery, along with Jimmy, who will more than likely miss this game too, as he continues to heal from his tailbone injury. So with all that in mind, what's everyone's expectations for this game? And do you guys think the Heat get the win? What's your take, Kaylee?
I think we'll be fine. Hopefully. I hope that because Magic can get kind of like weird sometimes. I don't know what it is. I feel like maybe they can just go on a run randomly and then we can like not catch up or something. I don't know. I just feel like the Magic has some magic tricks sometimes. But we should be fine. I'm sure that it'll just be a good game that we can kind of take a little bit easier than say like the Sixers or say like the Nets or something, so it's like we can take a little bit easier, a little bit slower, try new things, and just try to have a good, solid game and not make it all awkward. But yeah, just like cautiously having a decent game. That's what I hope.
Right. And how about you, Brian?
I mean, yeah, the Heat are shorthanded in terms of personnel, but the Magic are shorthanded in terms of talent and skill. So I think the Heat will be fine. The Magic aren't good. I think it's going to be a pretty solid victory. Plus, I kind of expect Hero to come back. So if Hero's back, then I'm not even worried about the Magic.
Right. And how about you, George?
Now, this is a weird matchup for me because I me personally, I don't make any predictions after the Boston Celtics prediction that we made where everyone was just going, yeah, easy win. And then we got destroyed. So I don't make predictions. But we are shorthanded. We can't overlook that. Tyler Hero's listed as questionable, along with Omi at 7. So it's going to be a very interesting game because it's much like the Cavs. They live on the inside. The only thing that they do better than us is score more points in the paint, and they get a half a more rebound than we do. We outscore them, we outsteal them, we outblock them, we out turnover them. So we get less turnovers than them. We shoot the ball better in every single aspect. But with all of our players out, Dwayne Dedman, and I hope Amir is in, are going to have to put work in because Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba, they live on the paint. They live in the paint and they do very, very good work. Cole Anthony's, I don't know if he's in for this game. I don't know why I would think he wouldn't be, but he's a good player. And if we're talking stars, that's the star right there. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think that we do, if I'm going to have to make a prediction, I think that we take them to a very difficult place when it comes to guarding our shooters because on the perimeter, they can't do much there. So I'm going to say that we'll win if I have to make a prediction. I don't know how close it'll be, though. I think it'll be pretty close.
Right. And you know what? I'm also going to predict the Heat win. I think, and let's see. I mean, the Magic, I think I've gotten rid of most of their random scrub Heat killers. It's really just Terrence Ross. But even then, there's only so much that he can do. So, yeah, I am also expecting the Heat win. I expect our guys to bowl out. And there's nothing more that really needs to be said. I mean, when you're talking about Orlando, like I said earlier, this is the second worst team in the NBA right now. So I expect Miami to show up and do what they got to do. And, this is great, because after this, you got Detroit, another game that the Heat should win, which is what makes this Philly victory even better. Because now you get to potentially, not saying likely that it's going to happen, because I'm not going to do any jinx or anything, but, you potentially have a chance to go on a 3-game winning streak. And we know how great that feeling is. So I'm also going to predict a Heat victory for this upcoming game. So now that we got that out of the way, I feel like we covered so much in this episode. Like, is there anything else you guys feel like we should hit on?
I still want chicken nuggets.
All right. I mean, so I can't do anything about that, but I'll send a prayer to you before I go to sleep that you get your chicken nuggets. So anyway, so with that being said, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. If you guys want to check out more content, make sure to check out our Twitter and Instagram at HVTW Podcast and our new website at hvtwpodcast.wordpress.com. And to follow that, make sure to check out the Heat vs. the World's newest extension show, Culture Shock, which stars Kaylee and her co-host Clippy. And they'll have a new episode coming out soon. For more information about that, feel free to check out their Twitter account at CLTR Shock Pod. Anyways, once again, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast, and we'll see you guys soon with another episode. We out.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast.